lovely people. I'm Sinead, and welcome to Dolls and Dollhouses. Today, we are going to make a fireplace. I feel like a fireplace is a necessity for Christmas decorating or Yuletime decorating. So since my Cindy house does not have a fireplace or a living room even for the Cindys, I want to put that in the high-rise where we have our living room at that scale. So rather than doing something freestanding, I just want to add a fireplace to that floor of the high-rise. So I will be making this fireplace completely differently than the one that I put down in the tavern, which was in a tiny room, limited space, so the fireplace was more of an illusion, or it just different construction. So this one will be much more present in the room. So let's get started. I wanted to share how the bedding had turned out. We've got the coverlet and pillows done, and I was able to keep the hanky reuse on the bed. I think it adds a nice element to that, and we still have the crocheted blanket in the corner draped over the end, and it has come together really nicely. I'm looking forward to getting the rest of the curtains done, and I have tied them back in such a way that you can still see the turned wood of the posts, so that's really cool too. But just wanting to share how this had turned out. I also wanted to share the table linens that I finished up that are not seasonal. They're more of drawing together the kitchen colors with the dining room colors and just decorating the table. I even have a stack of napkins right there that can be used in the place settings as well. And if you haven't gotten yourself some redware for your Cindy table, there is still some available in the shop, so go check that out. The first part of the process here is figuring out kind of the footprint. Now, I've had to move over the chair, and I have moved back the couch so that this little reading area here is smaller than it was, which is not a big deal. But if I want to get a second purple chair in here, I may end up having to move. Well, even my funny little decorations on the wall may have to move. But yeah, taking into account how much it's going to change the room to get these dimensions. The piece of paper on the floor is how deep the fireplace will be, and the piece of paper going upright is the back of the fireplace. So this is just to give me an idea of how it'll fit. I don't know if you remember me showing in an early craft and chat using these silicone molds, which are intended for polymer clay or fondant with paper clay. So in that craft and chat, I show you about you just press the paper clay in here and let it dry in place. And the main thing that you need to be careful about is getting the clay all the way down into the design. And I do that by, well, like on a deep design like this one, I might roll up a ball and stick it down in here, and then just kind of as I go, add a tiny bit of water over the separate pieces as I put in a bigger piece to fill in, or I just press harder in those deep areas after I've got a big clump of paper clay in there. But you don't know whether or not you've been successful until it's dry. And then it just pops right out and it's easy to see. And you can say you've put this in here and it has a big bubble or a space that didn't mold correctly. You can take a piece of wet paper clay, apply it to say this part right here did not come out. Take your wet piece of paper clay, put it there, press this back down into the mold, let it dry, and possibly have that area fixed. Try not to overfill it, but yeah, fix that area in that way. Or when I have a tiny little bubble, I've just taken a tiny little bit of paper clay and pushed it into the bubble to make the bubble fill, and then you can't tell that there was a bubble in the paper clay, and it'll dry into there. And as long as your paper clay is not too dry, it will go into the dry paper clay and dry in place, and you won't be able to tell later. Anyway, I want to use those on the fireplace as some kind of element. And yeah, these are all the ones that I currently have made up. All of them need to have cleanup where the paper clay extended beyond the mold before I use them. But I'm struggling with deciding, because my mantelpiece here, basically the shelf, the piece of marble or wood. When I was a kid, it was wood, which just seems crazy, but yeah, you do that. A wood shelf over your fireplace. I'm going to try and make mine look like marble. Putting this in place, the shelf here, its thickness, if I want to place one of these elements right on the edge, its thickness is determined by which of these I put on the edge of the marble. And if I put something like this on the edge, that looks better that way. Just realization. Doesn't look so great that way. Turn it over, it looks better. Anyway, if I want to put this on the edge, then it has to be thick enough to accommodate this. Now, I could just abandon that idea entirely and not put anything on the edge of my mantle, and then I only need to make it as thick as I want it to be. But that will decide how tall this piece is, the remaining piece. So that's one of the first decisions I have to make, is how thick I want that mantle to be to accommodate the decorations that I want to use. So I have to decide which decorations I want to use. You may be wondering how I came up with these dimensions, and it wasn't a complete stab in the dark. I was scrolling, as you do, and someone had done a flat lay with their break front and their fireplace, and I could see that proportionately the top of the break front was the same size as the fireplace. So I took the measurements off my break front to come up with this. Then I've shown you how I made sure it was going to fit in my living room. I want to keep the curve that the Cindy fireplace has, although I might change my mind on that and make it square. It certainly will be easier to cut out if I make it square, but I really like the rounded design. Cindy's fireplace is not this ornate. It does not have this much. It's got like one or two, little elements of decoration, not a lot. So clearly all of this is not necessary. I also am going to want to create logs and a log holder, and I'm not quite sure how I'm going to do that yet, but I do have logs. These are pieces of lilac, and so I've got those, and I'll have to paint them to look burnt. And the other thing that I'm going to see if I can find is my colored glazine paper, so that I can create the fire colors and possibly put a light bulb behind them. They'll look best if I can do that. But if we can put a light bulb behind, a tiny little LED light bulb behind, then we can have the look of a fire. I'm also going to need some kind of hearth down here. And if I'm going off the Cindy fireplace, they just put it inside the fire and extend it out. I'm not sure. That's not the design that I'm familiar with. So I might do mine a little different and make it come in front of this part as well, which would put these up higher. So if we're going to put a hearth down here, it's got to go into the fireplace and come out and be in front of this. I mean, if that's the design you want, you could just put it only in your fireplace. You don't even have to extend it out. So yeah, that decision has to be made. So I'm going to go make some decisions. All right, we have the backs of the decorations are all sanded so that they'll glue on fairly well. They aren't perfectly flat. There are a couple of dips here and there, but it's enough. Make sure that I've made sure that enough of the surface is flat so that we get good adhesion. This is the inside back of the fireplace. I used this to create the curve on the interior part here. We have the sides cut and the hearth. I wanted to talk about the cuts I made in the hearth. So the hearth has these two little cuts here. This is the interior of the fireplace. And I've got tabs on the bottom of the arched interior that will go in here. And this tab will butt up against the back here. And the tabs on the front, these tabs, will go in here. And everything has been made with, well, this is 3 layers of chipboard. I think this is 2, yeah. And this is corrugated and 1 layer of chipboard. And I believe this is 3 layers of chipboard, but the tabs are a 4th layer that I just stuck in there because the length of my chipboard was exactly what I needed, and I was not long enough to include the tabs. And of course, I've used corrugated on the mantle and the hearth. So this still feels like it's not quite dry, and I want it to be closer to dry before I start assembling. So we'll come back to that in a minute or longer. I've glued the arch interior to the back of the front, and then glued the back into that arch. Now, you can totally laugh at me for doing it the hard way. This whole construction piece could have just been the rectangular pieces here. I could just have put the sides on and stuck a back on it, and the opening of the fireplace could have been the only round part. An arch. It didn't need to have the interior of the fireplace constricted and arched. That's just me doing it the hard way, I guess. So I'm trying to decide if I want to wait until this is set up better before I attach the other parts, and I think I do. So let's glue the hearth in place. And I'm actually, I was going to put the glue on here, but I know it's just going to run to the inside of the corrugation. So instead, I'm going to put it on here. And that will keep it, hopefully. That's not where I want that. I'm sitting here going, well, I'm going to put this glue here. And then I realized this is where the little blocks go. And yeah, trying to make sure that I get the right block in the right spot. Yeah. Okay, that's where that one goes. Hopefully, yeah, that's better. Then figure out this one. Oh, yeah, have it fumble. Okay. Now I need to put the glue, just stick good enough, okay? Instead of using this glue, I'm going to get the other glue. tacky glue sticks on better. You know what I mean by sticks on. It does that whole quick grab. That's the words. So I may have to go back and add the quick grab to the yeah, that block that just went spitting out. Probably should have done the block second anyway. I just put the glue on the wrong place. Okay. Put that down there. When in doubt, grab some more. Yeah, I almost put glue across the back, which I don't want glue across the back. Make sure that it lines up on the bottom. I just keep it from rocking when I set it up. And I have been debating about how I was going to do the back of this. Because I want to put the sides on, but I want to leave room to stick a battery pack if I add a light.
I need help.
So here's the bottom. And I'm trying to keep it flush across there so it doesn't rock when I set it up. And obviously I want to put the sides in like so. But I am thinking I want to leave this area here open so that if I stick a light in here through a hole, you know, just make a little hole and stick an LED through, I want to be able to just stick the pack, the battery pack here without having to open it up. So I'm hoping it'll be stable enough to do this and then get the mantle on and have it, and I just pushed that out of the way. So clearly I need to let this set up. I'm going to set it up like this. I need to give the glue a second. Just so you know, you may have heard the voice come in and say he needed help. That was Arthur. Our pressure tank blew a weld, and the pressure tank didn't work properly. This is the joys of living off grid on property owned by a hippie. The pressure tank wasn't actually functioning properly, and then a weld blew, and well, it had to be replaced. Good news is that we got no argument about getting a new one, and it's just a matter of us taking the time to install it. And yeah, it was kind of comical, the three of us lifting that pressure tank into place today. But other than the comedy of wrestling large, I guess, appliances, and is a pressure tank an appliance? I don't know. If a hot water heater is, then a pressure tank is, into place, then, you know, part of life, right? Anyway, that was all that was about, was he needed somebody to hold the other wrench right now. Mostly where this pressure tank is located is too tight for two people to get into in the first place. And so, yeah, I'm trying to record in here around all of that without it interrupting, but it is interrupting my focus. I can't imagine why. That was sarcasm, just in case you didn't know. So anyway, I'm going to let that set up some more. It was kind of wild and crazy in here last night with the trying to get the pressure tank installed. And so I just kept working, thinking there was going to hit a quiet time when I could talk about what I was doing. And then next thing I know, they're talking about the fact that the generator won't start. And that a whole new complexity. So let's go over what I accomplished. I glued on the sides, and I used a piece of tape to hold it in place. And it didn't, I remember one of these sides was giving me trouble, and it didn't want to stay in where it belonged. It kept popping out the side, so I used the Fast Grab tacky glue, and then sat here and held them down so that it would grab at the back corners where it was trying to spread back out. Then I took all the pieces that went on the front here that are going to be painted the same color as this. See, these won't be a different color than the front of this, which is, I'm leaning towards marble, but it might just end up being cream colored. Pretty close to what it is, but I've reinforced or just covered the corners with piece of paper before I put the paper clay decorations on. I want to paint this one with a metallic paint, so that's why it's not glued in. I will go ahead and paint that. I also decided to cut a piece of chipboard to cover the back once the mantle is on. You see that the hearth is slightly wider, which that was intentional, but I'd forgotten. And I can still put a battery thing in here, and I assume it's going to help with the stability of the back because it'll be attached to something. And I'll go ahead and put a strip of paper to the chipboard. And also just this part of this, the fireplace will be glued to the chipboard as well. And I think it'll just create a more stable piece. I also put chipboard around the edges of the mantle and the hearth to eliminate that texture that happens with the ends of the corrugated. So could go ahead and get this glued in place. And then after that dries, well, no, we should glue on the back. And then after that dries, it's time for paint. We have a backup generator, so it was just a matter of moving it down and putting it in place. It's a harder to start generator. It doesn't handle quite as much power draw, and it let's see. Pause there for a second. Anyway, we had a generator to use. Joey's complaining because you have to pull start it, and the other one's a flip the switch. I don't blame her. I don't like the pull start. Never liked it on the lawnmower. We don't even own a lawnmower anymore. Lack of suburbia in here, I guess. I'm thinking about... Yeah, I gotta stop doing that. How about if we do this? Thinking about leaving it, letting it sit before I stick the back on. Well, you can really... You got a better marker for where it goes. Here's where the paint is so far. The little decoration that'll go in the back once the paint is dry has gold and then a kind of a bronze color put over the gold, and then a watered down black that I try to get in the cracks and then wipe it away. And then all the paint on this, after I did the white, was watered down. So I had some black, and I did some squiggly lines, and I did the interior to kind of look smoked up. And then I did a watered down gray over it, and before it was completely dry, I used the paintbrush to make a whole bunch of pattern in it. I can't touch it. It's wet. I was going to flip it up so you can see the top side where I didn't do any of this pattern with the paintbrush. I left that a smooth finish. More like what's there. Anyway, this is going to have to dry. And there's some areas like here where some white is showing through pretty strongly. It looks less so in real life. The camera's really picking it up. But I kind of wanted that. I wanted to have the white kind of come through a little bit. But this is where we're going to leave it to dry. And I just want to say I'm very pleased with how the medallion-y thing came out. I don't know if you're familiar with the heat reflectors that they would put in the back of a fireplace that were metal, and I remember them in like the 1700s type historical settings. Very decorative thing back there that would reflect light into the room because it was oftentimes the fire was a source of light, and it would also reflect the heat end. And anyway, this is a more 1800s kind of nod to that. Okay, I have made a 3-log stack and painted it like it's in the process of just getting a good burn going as far as when you look at it like that. I also made a little grate that I'll paint gray. It's just little matchsticks glued together. And I've got this glued in place. And that's what the top of the mantle looks like. And I took a piece of plastic from packaging and I glued glazine paper into it using Mod Podge and cut the shapes of flames so that we're going to turn on this light. It's not the best light for this, but it does kind of work. To give you an idea of what the glazine does with light. So all I have to do is get this painted and assemble the whole thing. We're all put together. I took the little rack and glued it in place with the same glue, the Fast Grab tacky glue. And I glued the logs to the rack. And this plastic is only glued along the edges here where it touched to hold it in place, and it's placed right over the hole that goes through back here, which I taped over because the wire was popping around and the light was moving. So it has 3 functions, and I don't really care for that, but it's what it is. I will probably replace the light at some point because it does produce heat, strangely enough. So it means it's not actually an LED. It's something else, incandescent or something. Anyway, let's put it in the high-rise. Well, here we are. I'm looking forward to eventually getting that other chair done because I think it'll add to the balance around it. But I'm really pleased with how it looks in place in the living room. And so if you watched on Craft and Chat and made it to the end of that, you know that I put out the offer that if you were interested in any of the dolls I have in stock, that you could contact me and make an offer. That still holds true. You can contact me and make an offer on any of the dolls in stock. And please do. As the country kind of clinches after that election, spending slows down. And the people it really, really hurts is the small business. Amazon isn't hurt by it. The Walmart, Target, they're not hurt by a slowing down of spending, but all of the small businesses really suffer when the country clinches as a whole. So not only do we suffer, like my son does the market in town and notices that not only does the weather affect this market as we go into the colder seasons, but the fact that there's less spending going on really cuts back, and small businesses really need this support. So whether it be my business or whether it be some other small business, seek them out. Try and find an alternative to shopping at the big box stores or online at places like Amazon. Find the small businesses and go directly to them, and shop. Don't clinch if you can at all help it. Continue to support small business as much as you can. And I hope you have a delightful day and a wonderful week, and that the sunshine comes out in your area and you get to enjoy that for at least a couple of hours sometime this week. Sunshine is a great mood lifter. Take advantage of it if you can at all. And I will see you in the next one. Bye.